to my track when testing becomes a risk. And before I start with the talk, I will give away the main prize. I will give away the biggest thing ever to go wrong in testing. So, how much damage do you think actually was done by a test being executed? So not by the fact that an error got into production because testing did not find it, by damage actually done by executing a test. So I do a test and damage is done because something goes wrong during this test. So any ideas how much damage has been done by a test gone wrong? How many lives, how many people were killed by a test being done wrong? 2. Now I start to get physical. So how many people died, do you think, about when a test was not performed properly?
Probably carrier dies, not the person dying, yeah? But carrier dies.
Number of people that died. 10? Okay. Any higher bidders?
100.
100? Okay. I think we need to go a bit higher.
50,000.
50,000, that's a good number. But we need to go higher.
100,000.
1 million, okay, that's a bit too much. The grand number is, this is an approximation, 200,000 people died because of a test gone wrong. Now you're all like, what? I hope. So what's the test that actually went wrong? Well, 200,000 people in an airline crash is a lot.
Is that one go or?
Yeah, in one go. Well, more or less. Partly because of the after effects. Yeah, Chernobyl. Very good. The actual meltdown of the reactor at Chernobyl was a test. They were testing their procedures. They were testing that if they brought the reactor in an unstable situation, they could bring it back again. So on purpose, they brought the reactor in an unstable situation. Wow, that was a test done in production, test failed. Okay, people died. So, first lesson, whenever you test in production, always be aware of the possible consequences. Ouch. Okay, let's start. There. I always forget where I put this thing. So, again, first of all, we ask ourselves questions. Why do we test again? We test because we do not want stuff like this to happen. We do not want the Mars climate orbiter doesn't orbit because of some stupid defect. We do not want people to have that reaction when they start working with our program. We do not want software errors to cost a lot of money. We do not want to have deadly radiation therapy because we put in too much radiation and in curing people. So there's a reason why we test. The reason is that we want to prevent damage, that we want to prevent loss of confidence in our company. We don't want to have the headlines in the newspapers. That's something we do not want. However, sometimes the tests themselves go wrong, and they can cause damage as well. But I have a number of examples. None of them will be as devastating as Chernobyl. That's good, that's the good news. The bad news is that they can happen to any of us. Because sometimes small mistakes in test execution will actually have a big impact. So if any of you see any of these examples and say, hey, I've seen this or I've seen something similar, please tell me. Right now, right here, let's make this an interactive session. I would like that. Good. So, case 1. Captain, we have a problem. Most of the stories I tell are either from my own experience or from experience of colleagues very near to me, so I know the stories by heart. This one happened to one of my colleagues at KLM. flight 347 to Sri Lanka was ready to go, stationed at the gate, and no passengers came. No passengers came. The list was full. It was fully booked. And then they started to look at the names on the list. Mickey Mouse, Ronald Reagan, Tester 1, Tester 2. Oh my God, someone had done a test in production and failed to, well, remove all passengers again. So there was this big airplane ready for takeoff with no one to fly. Okay, so what are the costs of this mishap? Well, the cost of one flight. So let's say it's about 30,000 euros. You know, big flight, lots of people going in there. Loss of sales. So what was going wrong here? What mistake was made?
No control.
No?
No control.
No control. Yeah, so they could have seen out front that something was wrong. They might not have seen any payments coming in. That might have been the trigger. What else did they do wrong?
Didn't clean up.
They didn't clean up afterwards. So they did a test and they forgot to clean up. So the mess that they left was still in there. Maybe there's one more mistake they made.
Yeah, using test data in a production system.
Yeah, testing in production. Okay, so we just saw Chernobyl where testing in production was not a good idea. We now see another example where testing is not a good idea in production. So maybe testing in production is not the best way to go. However, can we always prevent testing in production? Why not?
Test in development. Testing in development stage?
Yeah, the test environment might not be as good as you expect it to be, so we need to test in production to see how it really works. Okay, I see some people not really believing that, and I must say partially that's true, because if we really want to, we can build very good test environments.
Yeah.
Specifically now with virtualization, we can really make good test environments. Is it always good enough to do that? And do we sometimes not want to rush into production because we actually have a big problem? For instance, if we have a bug fix, we do not want to wait for another 3 hours or 3 days or 3 weeks for the testing to be finished. We just want to push it into production and say, well, let's see what happens. Okay. Case 2. This one actually happened while I was working there. This is at the exchange of Amsterdam, you know, the option exchange where they sell options and buy options. And at some point, we had a test. In our test room, we also had one production monitor. Because sometimes if something went wrong in production, the developer could also look in production to see what was going on. So we had a monitor that was actually connected to development, and we had a lot of monitors that were connected to test environments. So at some point, we hear some big disturbance in the room next door, and the next door was the trader room. There was a lot of action going on there, and it was not Friday afternoon, because on Friday afternoon you have a lot of stocks being exchanged, but this was Tuesday morning. We were like, what's going on? They said, well, someone is selling off Heineken very cheaply. And then we were like, but we were just doing a test on Heineken. What's going on here? The tester, room was full, took the last monitor that was there, not realizing that was the production monitor. So he wanted to do a big test. He put in a lot of stock at Heineken at €1 per piece, which at that moment was 12 euros in price. So everybody wanted to buy it. Everybody, the crowd went wild. Everybody, yeah, buy. So they, actually, we sold about 500,000 pieces of Heineken at 10 euros below price. that cost the exchange €500,000. That's a big loss. So, again, what went wrong?
They probably should have labeled that monitor.
They would have labeled that monitor. That would have been a good idea, because then at least they know, oh, this is production, okay. So actually we did that. We put a big piece of orange tape around the screen to warn people this is not a testing monitor. What else could they have done to prevent this? Because there is another way of solving this.
Lock the screen.
Separate the venue.
Block the screen, yeah, and then have a password on the screen which is different from testing. So we had a lot of people that had the same password in production as they had in testing, and that was not allowed anymore. Then if you would try to log in production, you used your test password, at least you were warned, oh, this is not a test environment, so you need to put in your production password. Then we also blocked a lot of people on the development of the production environment, because everybody had access to production environment, and after this incident only 1 or 2 people had access to the production environment, which also made sense. And last but not least, we introduced a number of funds into the system, the test system, that were not present in production. So if you wanted to do a test, we didn't have to use Heineken anymore. We could use test fund 1 or test fund 2, which was much safer because we couldn't make the same mistakes in do something like that in production. Okay? Number 3. This was bad. I was working at an insurance company and they were selling life insurances. So